Welcome, everyone. This is Debbie Mayberry with National Kitchen and Bath Association. You are here for our first webinar of the month of October on appliances and storage. And today's session is called Restaurant Technology in the Residential Kitchen, otherwise known as Modern Cooking Technology for the Home Kitchen. And Andrew Forlines is with us. He is a chef and owner of Chef AF LLC. And I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Headache, for their generous sponsorship for today's webinar and all of our webinars. And Andrew, ready to get started. And if you just want to unmute your line, we are ready to go. Thank you. Okay, Andrew, we're ready to get started.
All right. Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Appreciate it. My name is Chef Andrew Forlines. I'm with chefaf.com. Today, I'm in the Mountain High Appliance Showroom here in Littleton, Colorado, just south of Denver. And before we get into the presentation, I just want to talk a little bit about, what I like to accomplish here with kitchen designers, or architects, homeowners. I like to take a step back and look at the industry and the appliance selection process a little from a larger view, right? So we've had huge advancements, lots of new technology has come in the last 5-10 years. So a lot of clients come in selecting appliances based on what they did before, but people are only remodeling every, several years. So, a lot can change in a very quick amount of time. So just shifting the perspective a little bit on how we approach that process, how we engage with the clients in that, and getting them to slow down and open their eyes to all the possibilities. Because what I find a lot is that clients are coming into the showroom and talking to me and then saying, oh, well, I want that and I want that. And then they have to go back and redraw their initial layout of their kitchen to accommodate all that technology. So what I try to do is empower kitchen designers to think about that ahead of time and kind of guide their clients to that. I'm also starting to see client showrooms, kitchen design showrooms, send clients to the appliance retailer first to select appliances and technology, and then go for the initial design sit down. So the relationship between kitchen designer and residential appliance provider, retailer, installer is really getting much closer than it has been in the past. And I really want people to feel like they can get a partnership with someone in that industry. I do a lot of customer education, but wherever you are, there's premium appliance showroom retailers that are going to have fantastic staff to answer those questions and almost be a partner on your team. Think of some of the retailers as your assistant, your appliance assistant, and they really do go above and beyond expectations in working with your clients to find what fits their needs best. So the way I think about showrooms, if you think about car dealerships, appliance showrooms tend to be like if all the car dealerships were under one roof and they're all vying for attention, all making claims to differentiate. So, we do have to realize that there's going to be a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of great choices, and there's really no wrong choice. It's about setting up and matching a client with the ideal appliance for their lifestyle, cooking style, budget, space constraints, and those kinds of things. So it's really about matching up the client with the appliance that best suits their needs. And then when you do that, there's going to be a few brands that are going to be great, and they would be happy with all of them. So there is no one golden choice. There's no one perfect appliance. There's many options and many technologies available now. And a lot of newer technology, or at least newer in the last several years, coming from the restaurant fine dining realm and commercial use, where I come from, into the home space. So that's where I help educate and teach people how to utilize steam ovens, induction, sous vide cooking, and that's what we're going to focus on here today, is the technology embedded in the appliances, regardless of brand. There's many different versions of all these different technologies. So we're going to go through that, and in each section we will pause to take questions, but you're also welcome to send any questions to the Q&A or the chat pot link right here. And then afterwards, you can always follow up with me. I'm very accessible. And I'm going to put my email right in the chat bar right there. So be sure to save anything in the chat bar, any links or anything that we put in here, because it's going to vanish at the end of this seminar. So let's get going here on the slides. We're going to focus a bit on the modernist cuisine movement, which has arrived in the home kitchen. And that's talking about those technologies from fine dining and commercial use. Their main core values are precision, control, and metrics. So precision, I want a low variance and low adjustability of oven temperature, of steam content. I want it to be consistent as possible. The history of appliances has always been, and cooking really throughout human history has been, raw power and how to control it, how to moderate it, how to turn it down, turn it up. So you see, the invention of the oven, you see open pit fire cooking, you see in earth cooking with coals, and getting up to the wood burning stoves where we have adjustable air vents and that kind of thing. So it's always been a drive towards control and precision. And another element would be the metrics. So that's a feedback. What am I going to learn? What am I going to learn in it? What am I going to learn as I'm cooking? What are the feedback notifications that I'm getting from the food itself? It's brownness, crispiness, the sound of the sizzle, doneness. But then the appliances are able to give us a lot of information back as well. So we're starting to see built-in probe thermometers that go right in your chicken or your beef roast or whatever you want to cook. And we're going to get a real-time readout of that thermometer. We're getting real-time readouts of the internal temperature of the oven, so that we're able to see where the oven's at any time. So those are the core values of modernist cuisine, and you're going to see that drive throughout all these appliances and technologies: precision, control, and metrics, feedback, the information that you're getting and ability to adjust to it, right? Some of the appliances in this field of modernist cuisine are going to be your induction burners, which are high performance, high power, but also responsive, consistent heat output, very adjustable. Induction technology has been around for decades, almost 100 years. In the home space in America, it's a little bit of a newer process to get people educated in it. Whereas in Europe, they're at about 80 or 90% of the market has induction in their homes, because a couple of different reasons. One is energy costs so much more over in Europe. We've got cheap energy here in America still. That's changing. You've also see the European style where people take their kitchen with them, believe it or not, when they move home. So they take all their appliances out. And I think that's that's a factor as well, because the induction is going to be easier to take with them than, say, a gas line, a gas range, right? Steam ovens, so combi ovens, we call them combi in the commercial realm for combination: convection, dry heat, and humid steam injection. So we're able to control the humidity content of an oven precisely, so we can adjust it. So we can roast foods, but keep them moist and juicy. We can steam poach and do all steam. So we're poaching fish and doing veg. Instead of doing all that on the stovetop, we can do that into a steam oven. And then we're seeing some really great hybrid uses there where we're able to consistently control the humidity. Some of the steam ovens are actually sous vide compatible, and we'll get into what that is, but it's slow and low, high moisture content cooking. Speed ovens are a great category. Some people call them convenience ovens or specialty oven. We're seeing a trend away from the traditional double stack oven, and you'll see behind me here, in the Gaggenau showroom here, we have a convection oven below, and then above we have a side swing steam oven. So we're getting away from the two dry oven, convection, double stack oven, and moving into a convection oven and then a specialty oven. And a lot of that will be available steam oven or speed oven. Speed oven has got some microwave element in it or other elements. Quick question. Yes, the slides, I will make those available. I will send a link to the slides that you're welcome to have and use and share. So then the other thing, we talked about the internal probe, and we're going to go in depth in all of these, so don't worry about learning it all right now. Vacuum sealing is an important part of the sous vide cooking and food preservation. So vacuum sealing is when we take food and put it in a food grade high temp BPA free bag. We suck the air out and we seal it with heat. We're going to melt that plastic together, and then we can submerge that in a temperature controlled water, so that we're able to slowly cook that food without exposing it to air or water. And then we're going to be able to cook it precisely, very, very precisely. So the vacuum sealing is very integral to that process, because we've got to get the air out and we got to seal that bag. There's two types. We're mostly familiar in the home space with the suction-based vacuum sealer, like a food saver. And I use that at home. It's very effective, but it has some limitations. So we're not able to use very wet foods in there, or put a brine in, because the suction will pull the liquid up and then inhibit that from sealing closed. So the chamber drawers we see, which are commercial style, but now they're small enough just to be a slide out drawer in the home. So you can get that full commercial grade sous vide process right in home. Wine serving systems, there's some really interesting stuff happening with preservation of wine and service too. So we'll show you some of that. We're using argon gas, which is an inert gas, which just replaces the oxygen in a bottle so that the wine isn't exposed to oxygen, so it doesn't turn bad, and you can preserve that bottle for much longer. And there's two systems that we'll talk about. So the modernist techniques are sous vide cooking, some automation. We're getting a lot of automated recipes and guided recipes built into our touchscreen ovens, built into some of our app-driven appliances. And that's really great automation for people that aren't as comfortable or confident in the kitchen. So think of it as a cooking lesson, cooking class in your home as you cook your meal, right? So we're seeing a bit of a split here in the marketplace. We're seeing ovens, the traditional sense that I tell it what to do. I turn it on, I put food in and out, I control all of that heat and whatnot. Whereas now we're starting to see this technology enable us to have an oven tell us or prompt us what to do step by step. So we're seeing a lot of that integration happen. We're also seeing that built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, which a lot of people will talk about your selling point. Oh, I can preheat the oven on the way home, which is great. But what it really enables me to do is cook with comfort in my home, greet my guests, have a glass of wine, enjoy the evening, and not worry about checking the oven constantly, running in and out of the kitchen or staying in the kitchen. And that is because a lot of these ovens now, their interface, the touchscreen or where we're connecting with them, is now able to be in your phone on your app. So we can have app guided cooking, we can have app controls or remote controls through the apps. So we're able to adjust temperature, we're able to stop cooking, we're able to watch that temperature as it's rising inside the food if we're using a probe thermometer. So we'll get into this a little bit more. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But we'll go with the primer on sous vide cooking. So just to break this down a little bit, sous vide is just French for under vacuum. Sous chef is under chef. Sous vide is just French for under vacuum, because we're going to seal that food under vacuum pressure. We're going to push the air out of the bag so that we have food that's sealed in there and not exposed to water or air as it's cooking. Water and air are both empty and want to take the food, the flavor, the nutrients from the food. So if you're ever cooking vegetables in water, you'll notice the water turns the color of the vegetable. Green vegetables turn the water green. That's flavor and nutrients that have just seeped out of your food, right? So if you can cook quicker, or you can cook in a sealed environment, you're going to preserve all of that. So with sous vide cooking, we're cooking the product in its juices, in its internal juices, as opposed to bringing in a heat transfer medium like air or water. So you can really control how that food gets handled. We're going to place it in a humid or a water dense environment. So the original sous vide style is almost like a water oven. We're putting a vessel of water, we're putting a heating element in it, and I'll show you right here. So on the top right here is an immersion circulator. So it circulates the water with a pump, and it's going to heat that water, right? We're going to heat that water to that consistent temperature we want, precise temperature. So when we're cooking with water, when we're using water as our heat transfer medium, it's 800 times denser than air. So it's going to transfer heat much quicker, much more efficiently. When you think about a boiling pot of water, you put your hand over it, it's going to burn you right away. But you can put your hand in, say, a 400-degree oven and not feel it for a second or two, right? That's because it's a lower temperature with water, but it's a higher transfer rate because of that density. Whereas air is a very non-dense medium, it's not going to transfer heat very well. So what that means is I can move more molecules, 800 times more molecules across the heating element in a water bath than I could in a dry oven, meaning I can preserve and consistently heat it, keeping that temperature constant. So I'm able to do low temperatures and I'm able to do temperatures that are not going to vary. So when we heat up an oven, say a convection oven, a dry oven, say we set it to 350, that's the average temperature it's going to want to try to maintain. Okay, we're gonna have peaks and valleys in there. So it's like a home furnace turning on and off. So you're gonna get it hot and it's gonna cool down and it's gonna turn on and turn off. So those peaks and valleys, we call that oven variance. And your entry-level ovens are gonna have a very wide variance because their heating elements aren't very precise. Their thermostats aren't gonna be kicking on very often. So you can have a 15 to 20 degree fluctuation above or below. So that's potentially 40-degree swing at any point in your oven. So that can be the hidden culprit of sunken cakes or dried out cookies or failed cooking experiments, right? Because that fluctuation. Now, when we get into a premium oven, which has some hidden benefits that people don't think about, a lot of ovens look the same, but what you're paying for are some things that really impact that oven variance. So your premium ovens, I haven't seen hard data, but their variance is around 5 to 7 degrees above or below what you set it to. So we're still going to have some variance, but it's going to be more precise window. The longer you have the oven on, the more shallow that oven variance gets, because the premium ovens are going to have a thermally dense shell around the cavity, which means, thicker insulated oven box, right? So what we're going to do is we're preheating that thermally dense oven box instead of just the air. So entry-level oven is going to be very light compared to those. You're going to be able to jostle the range because it's just heating up the air. So when you open it, put food in and shut it, it's got to reheat all the air. Whereas a premium oven has that thermally dense cavity so that you're able to maintain a temperature and it's going to reheat quicker. So that's a big difference in premium ovens. A couple others would be, of course, your interface, your technology, but also some air quality ventilation. So your ovens filter their air with a catalytic converter, burning off some of that particulate so we don't get smoke in the house. So your nicer ovens are going to do that. And some of the other touch points in technology, but the performance wise, that's really something to pay attention to. So when we talk about oven variance, I can put food in there and I'm cooking it, but only to a certain amount of precision, right? So when we get our sous vide going and we've got that dense water environment, I'm able to maintain a water temperature of 0 variance. So technically it's half a degree variance, but we call it a 0 variance for the purposes of cooking. So we're able to precisely cook that temperature, that food. If you go to fine dining restaurants, you go to a lot of steakhouses, now we're sous vide cooking all the steaks ahead of time to rare or mid-rare. And then when you order it, we're gonna pull it out of the bag and sear it and cook it up to the temperature you want. But we're gonna have a much bigger eye in that food. So the internal temperature of the food itself is gonna get to that consistent 125 for mid-rare. And you'll have a much bigger area of the steak, the perfect doneness that you like. Whereas if I'm doing something that's fast and hot, like searing it on a grill or in a pan and then putting it in an oven for a few minutes, you're going to get a much smaller eye or internal temperature, and you're going to get a lot of brown and gray around it. So the precision of the sous vide really helps us cook things precisely. And you'll see on menus 48-hour pork ribs or 72-hour short ribs or pork belly. That's usually when I'm referring to a sous vide braise process. That can be a really long process, but makes it really tender. We'll do induction cooking here. With the induction cooking, someone asked, how's it compared to gas? Performance-wise, induction is going to be the benefits, the pros of both the gas and cleanability of electric, but even better without the downside. So induction, I'm a big fan of. It's fast, safe, powerful, responsive, consistent. Induction is electric powered, but it's not at all like an old electric top. We think of glowing red hot burners. So the coils or even the glass top, we get glowing red hot, that heat would transfer up to the pan. This is going to be electric powered, but it's creating a whole different way of generating the heat. It's creating a magnetic field. So there's a copper coil underneath the burner that activates a magnetic field that interacts with the metal of the pan itself, creating friction in the pan, creating heat. So the heat source is the pan itself. So the glass top only gets the heat from the pan going back down, which is much lower than the glowing red hot. So you're not going to get food burned on there, cooked on. You're not going to have to scrape it with a razor blade to get it clean. It's going to wipe clean with a hot soapy towel or a sponge. The pans don't have to be specialized. They just have to be compatible. So any pan that's magnetic, stick a magnet to your pans. If it sticks, it's going to work. Copper and aluminum don't. And a lot of your entry-level pans are going to be aluminum. Pardon me. So aluminum is a very cheap metal, but it doesn't retain heat very well. So it gets hot. As soon as you put food in there, it cools it down. It can't really get back up to that heat. So what we're seeing is a lot of mixed metal pans. So think of All-Clad or any other brand that's doing a multi-ply pan. They call it All-Clad because it's all clad in stainless steel, making it much easier to clean and a better cooking surface. But in the interior are different layers of metal. Each metal reacts differently to heat. Aluminum, like I said, absorbs heat quickly, but doesn't retain it. So then iron is going to retain that heat much better. Copper transfers heat across. So we think of copper wiring in your home, it transfers very well. So when we have a layer of copper, we're able to evenly distribute that heat across your pan. So you'll have 3, 4, 5 ply, and then it's all wrapped in stainless. Most your mid-grade and above pans are going to be induction ready. You can check your packaging on new pans. But what that means is that there's no perfect brand. There's no brand that I recommend over the other. I recommend, as with appliances and cars and cabinetry, it's good, better, best. We pay we pay to get into that bracket, and those brackets are competing against each other. So they do have to be very similar, and you can get in there and split hairs on some differentials, but most of these things are working similarly. Induction works really well with cast iron, which is a very inexpensive cooking cookware. I recommend putting a towel or a silicone mat. I do the silicone mats, like the baking mats, in between the glass and the cast iron. So it becomes scratch resistant, and it's going to become slip resistant. So that's a really nice way to do that. So this is a video we're not going to play. It's 6 minutes, but it is an overview of the induction like I've talked about just now. And that's on my website. It's also on my YouTube channel. So you're welcome to check that out. I've got some other resources on there. You're welcome to give those to clients to get in, to get up to speed on all this. There we go. Oh. Really wants us to watch this video. And that's in the way. There we go. We will watch this brief video. It's just a minute or two of Heston Q, which has got some unique technology built in now with the GE appliances. So they actually have a Bluetooth enabled heat sensor in the pan, so that the pan and the burner can communicate with each other and adjust temperature as needed. And then it's also going to link up to an app with video guided recipes. So we'll watch this really quick.
This is the Q induction burner. It's a durable, easy to clean ceramic glass cooktop with Bluetooth connectivity. The burner connects to your cookware. This is our 11-inch tri-ply stainless steel saute pan with embedded temperature sensing in the base, which connects to our Bluetooth right here in the handle. We also have our chef's pot, which has temperature sensing in the base of the pot, as well as our Bluetooth in the handle. The Heston Q is a smart cooking system, which uses both our pan and our burner that connects to our app via Bluetooth technology. I like to think of smart cooking as using that old rotary phone versus your smartphone that you use today. The Q adjusts cooking temperature with precision as you cook. We have over 500 guided recipes that walk you through everything from prepping your ingredients to plating the final dish. All of our recipes are created and tested by our team of chefs and culinary scientists to ensure perfect results every time you cook.
So that Heston-Q technology, you know, they're partnering with a lot of celebrity chefs who are using their recipes, and so you can do a guided recipe with that celebrity chef. So, you know, I've got kitchen designers cooking in the showroom when I do events. They're able to cook crepes and things step by step through the app, but also you can do a more involved meal like with these celebrity chef recipes. So a dinner party could really revolve around that. And it's also a great, that plug-in countertop is a great way to get people familiar with induction. It's a great talking point. We see a lot of college students getting them as gifts when they go away so they can cook in their dorm rooms, because ventilation is not as much of a requirement with induction because we're not combusting gas in the home. We got some questions here. Yeah, all clad nonstick doesn't work. Yes, some stainless steel is going to be magnetic, some isn't. A lot of the non-stick pans are going to be a little trickier to find in induction. I found a couple brands that are commercial style. So if you go to a commercial restaurant supply store, you can go, if it's a hardware equipment store, usually are open to the public. The kitchen, restaurant, food suppliers are membership only. So something to keep in mind if you ever want a commercial grade appliance or cookware or anything like that. So a couple of, we'll get some questions here on induction. I just want to mention some of the things I didn't, where the ventilation requirements are much lower. By code, really, we don't have the requirement for ventilation like we do with gas on induction, because we're not combusting gas in the home. We're not creating carbon monoxide. We're not creating fumes. A lot of your ventilation needs are dependent on the BTUs you're putting out from gas itself, because we don't want to cause any air quality or suffocation issues there. So induction, you're going to want ventilation for smells and particulates and cooking, but not the same powerful ventilation you're going to need with gas. The ventilation needs can stay under that 400 CFM cubic foot of air per minute leaving the home, which is usually the code threshold to having to bring in makeup air somewhere else in the home. So that's a whole nother HVAC project of a fan bringing air in, or a damper. That air's got to be heated and treated, got to be filtered. So your project for getting a gas range can really balloon when you get your ventilation incorporated, or you get your makeup air. And the thing that people don't realize is that gas is underpowered in the residential space. So a lot of people come to me, oh, you're a chef, you only cook on gas, you must love gas. I'm like, that's not true. I love commercial gas. Commercial and residential appliances are completely different fields, different manufacturers, because they're building to different specifications and different building requirements. So we're only allowed to put out so much heat in the home space. We can't overheat our cabinetry. It's a home, so there's bedrooms in there. We don't want fire to be an issue like it would be if we brought in these huge commercial ranges. A lot of people say, oh, these commercial ranges are cheaper, I want to put it into my home. But the heat output is too high. The safety issue, you know, they're not insulated, and you need huge ventilation. The most expensive part of a restaurant build out is the ventilation and fire suppression system that are built in to the hoods over your cooking zone. So when we talk about gas burners, a lot of people conflate the two because we're doing pro style in the home, but your BTU output in the restaurants can be 40,000 to start at and go up to 100+ thousand BTUs on a wok burner. So we're able to put out huge amounts of power. When residential, we're capped at 25,000 BTUs on a gas burner. Most your burners are going to be in the 18 to 20,000 range as your power burners, and they can be much lower than that. So right there, we've got a lower BTU than people might think they're getting when they watch shows on TV, which are all commercial ranges in those Top Chef and those kinds of cooking shows. Whereas induction is 35,000 BTU equivalent per burner. So we're able to get about 150% of the heat output of the power output than we would with gas. So that means I'm able to boil water much quicker. I'm able to cook much higher. Whereas gas is going to have that lag. I'm in Colorado, where our elevation plays a factor as well. So the higher we get in elevation, the lower the oxygen content of the air. The gas can't even breathe, can't even burn to that efficiency. So we have a reduction in BTU output, and in high enough elevation, we're having to get the manufacturer to adjust the gas lines and the air intake to adapt for that lack of oxygen. So here I caution people. I mean, if you're living in a ski town and you're trying to boil a pot of water for pasta, it's going to be 30-40 minutes with the lid on, whereas induction is much faster. And I'm adjusting how I cook with induction. When people get it, I say, hey, go 3/4 power to start and adjust up and down from there. So you're not burning everything. That's what everyone does. And it preheats much quicker. So you're not having that lag time of the metal not heating up. So you really want everything cut and prepped, and you're kind of cooking wok style almost with everything because it can be so feisty. But what's nice about that is if I overcrowd my pan and I'm browning onions and then suddenly it's too wet, they're steaming, they're getting kind of, they're just sweating in there, I can turn that power up on induction, go way hotter, evaporate the moisture out, and now I'm browning again and I can turn it down again. So we've got more control and flexibility. You've got more raw power output. And you're also seeing a lot of electrification in Berkeley and other cities in California. No new building can have a gas hookup. Like, we're going gasless because we want renewable energy sources to be cooking with. So you get better air quality in your home, but you're also getting cleaner energy. So we're seeing a movement to all electrification. And personally, I have induction in my home. I really love it for all the reasons we've talked about. And then I do gas cooking outdoors. So you can get some fantastic gas grills that are infrared gas burners now. We've got high BTU burners outdoor that can be built in or cart ready. And those are at 65,000 BTU. So I always recommend people do, induction indoors and then some kind of gas component outdoors to get the best of both. And you're not underpowered indoors. So that's me. I just kind of keep going on the stuff I get excited about. But if there's any questions here on the induction or the sous vide that we talked about, we can pause for those. You have clients concerned about the noise of induction. So you're going to have a little noise with the magnetic field interacting with the metal of the pan. And what I've found is that the more magnetic metal that it has to interact with, the quieter it is. So you'll hear a bit of a whining or a buzz, and that's the energy trying to find somewhere to go and not having enough metal to work with there. So quality pans do make a big difference. If we crack the glass top, can you repair or buy a new cooktop? I'm not entirely sure. I think you can get them repaired. That's why a lot of times I recommend people do the silicone pads between their burner and their pans. Because it's going to soften that. We want to be careful not to break it, but it is high endurance, high heat glass. So it is very resilient. I'm standing right on one actually on my computer on here, but the induction, there's a few different ones that you're going to want to think about, some of the aspects when you're designing it. A lot of them are going to have that stainless steel trim around the glass to help protect the glass. So the corner of a glass cooktop is the most vulnerable part because it's not really dropping pans that is happening. It's a lot of times pans sliding across the counter into the corner of the cooktop. So you'll see stainless steel bands or strips along the front and the back to protect those corners. That's also going to be nice to match it with your other stainless steel appliances. So that's something to consider. And then there's also flush mounting. So some of the cooktops, glass top cooktops, can be flush mounted, which is usually a little bit more expensive, but gets you that clean modern look where it's flush mounted, so a pan would slide right on or off the glass and you wouldn't have that vulnerability. There are some that are going to be just a glass cooktop on top of on the counter, and it's going to have that lip protruding. So just be careful of that. So then also with the fan, usually you don't have a fan in the induction burner. If it's a plug-in burner, sometimes those have fans to cool them off, but the cooktop ones aren't usually. It's usually the sound of the induction trying to get enough metal to work with. At home, I use a lot of cast iron because it's just got so much magnetic ferrous material for it to interact with. Oh yeah, so here's a great question with induction and gas. We're seeing a hybrid. So what a lot of the appliance manufacturers are realizing is that people don't want to do the full jump to induction. They don't want to give up gas completely. And I've been into some homes where they've actually done both. They've done an induction cooktop, and then they've done 1 or 2 gas burners or specialty burners. And what I always tell clients to do is like, hey, ask what other people like that are like you, right? So like it's when I meet clients that have done gas and induction indoors, they find that they don't use gas as much. They use the induction, they gravitate towards it. Cleanability, safety, you know, we don't have a lot of spillover heat. So going back to induction on an efficiency's sake, you know, gas is about 40% efficient. And a lot of the gas you're burning, the heat is going right around the pan before the metal can absorb that heat and going right out through ventilation. So we've got a lot of spillover heat into the home. Old electric tops are about 75% efficient because you got to move that pot or pan to stop the cooking process, right? And that glowing red heat is going to go into the home. So induction is 95% efficient in transferring the power into heat directly in the pan. So we don't have a lot of spillover heat. So I can cook indoors in the summer and not heat up the house with induction. We've got safety features too. So we can't turn an induction burner on without metal for it to interact with. So if there's no pans on there and you press on, it's just going to beep at you and say, hey, there's nothing here. I'm shutting back off. On the other end of that, say an emergency pulls you away when you're cooking or you're forgetful. If the moisture burns away or if that pan gets above cooking temperature, there's a sensor in that burner to turn it off. So say the water evaporates out, emergency pulled you away, it's starting to burn, it's going to just shut off because it says, hey, you're above cooking temperature. You can't do that with a gas burner or an electric burner. So you know, for a lot of folks aging in place, a lot of retirement home kitchens are going with induction because you're not heating up the whole house, because of the safety issues, because of the auto shut off. All that stuff really adds up. So going back to, yes, there are integrated gas and induction tops. We're seeing some brands where we're doing our larger ranges where we're going to have gas and induction. Let's see, Thermometer's got one. They've got a few different layouts. Most of them will just have 2 burners of induction. You've got LG's Signature Kitchen Suite line now has the giant everything range, not giant, but it's got 2 induction burners, 4 gas burners, and then a water well for sous vide immersion cooking. Then underneath, it's going to have a standard convection oven, and then next to it, a steam oven. So they have a range that's the everything at range. So you're not going to need wall ovens. You're not going to need any other cooking equipment. You're going to get that, and that's fine. So there's a few that mix them. You know, across brand, induction is very similar because they're getting the master induction coil generators from the same couple of manufacturers. We're seeing performance very similar. The interface can be different. So really that's a preference of how am I interacting with it? Is it touch control? Is it knobs? We're also seeing burner layouts changing and evolving. So the very first induction were round burners to replicate what we're used to with gas burners or even electric burners. Now we're seeing a lot of rectangular burner shapes so that we can get a griddle pan on there and not have a cold spot in the middle between 2 burners. We can have a full activation. We're seeing some freedom, so it's automatically sensing where pots and pans are and then just activating underneath. And so that's with Thermometer and Dog. Now they have the right, they invented that, so they have the exclusivity to that. So with the hybrid, I would say that there's different brands doing gas and induction. I think it's really just client preference on the interface because when you get into those premium brands, they're very consistent across, competing with each other for the same dollar virtually. Yeah, so putting between the pot or pan, I wish I had it. They kind of wander away in the show. A silicone pad, silpat or silicone mat is silicone baking sheet. So you put it, instead of using tin foil or parchment paper, it's silicone mat that's around a mesh to hold it together. So it's like a mesh sheet with silicone. The silicone is high temp. So I wouldn't really use parchment or paper towel because if you are doing high temperature cooking, those can brown. Those can get a little too hot. So I like the silicone, or there's some like grill pads that you can put that people use on grills. So they're even higher temperature just to preserve the glass. You could use towels or paper if it's not high heat deep frying. It's going to be fine. Touch control appliances that deal with aging in place. Yeah, we're actually seeing a lot more induction now being used. The interface being knobs. So when it first came out, a lot of your cooktops are just touch screen. and not everybody likes that. So we're seeing, you know, my range at home is actually a GE Cafe, has knobs to turn on so it looks like a gas range. We're seeing Samsung has a magnetic floating knob. So it's actually a tactile knob that you can pick up and interact with each of the different burners. You can still do the touch screen, but it's going to have that tactile knob. AGA usually has knobs. So the different brands that have knobs. So there is the aging in place component. There is the tactile feel, the tradition, the comfort of it. There's also people that are vision impaired want the knobs so that they can, you know, feel what they're dealing with there. All right, so we'll keep moving here. We're getting into the combi ovens. So steam ovens are, we call them combi ovens because they're combination convection, dry ovens, and then steam. We're seeing, please move, trying to get my computer to behave. Does everyone see that screen share still all right? Okay. So yeah, these steam ovens is another technology that's come from commercial restaurants, fine dining, commercial applications. They have such high control and functionality. The steam oven has been around in the restaurants since the 1970s. There's a company in Germany, Rationale, who makes the one that's the gold standard. And a lot of restaurants, banquets, a lot of high production are going to have those because we can control exactly what's happening to the food. You see a lot of chain restaurants using them so that because they can automate or download recipes across all of their stores from the headquarters all at once. So there's a lot of interface usability there in the commercial grade ones. So some of this, you know, we look at cooking, like I said, has always been about controlling the environment with precision. It's also creating moisture, which is the density, which helps create insulation. So think of double boilers when we're doing custards, we're putting boiling water in a casserole dish with the ramekins in it. With a steam oven, I can replicate that without having to do the water bath. With steam ovens, we can do custards, creme brulee, we can steam poached fish, vegetables. I even steam fresh pasta. So I do tortellini or raviolis in a vessel covered in water, salt the water. I'm gonna steam it for about the same time I would boil it, or maybe a little longer. To be a much more gentle plumping of the pasta, especially those fresh pastas that are filled. The turbulent boiling pot is gonna break them open. So this really does preserve the integrity of the food much, much nicer. When we get into sous vide cooking, you can do a steamed oven with low temperature, consistent sous vide. You'll see this picture has that probe, so we can probe, cook, roast things and have that temperature. So we've got some questions here. Water lines for the steam ovens, yes. Some of them are going to be plumbed in and out, especially your premium ones for people that don't want to deal with that. But all of them will have a reservoir option. So if water line isn't possible, we're going to be able to have a water reservoir that we can pull in and out. So this here, this one's plumbed, so I don't have a reservoir in there. It's a side swing Gaggenau. If you have a traditional kitchen, recommend a portable induction cooktop. You know, I like the Heston Q because of all that integrated technology of the app-driven recipes. Yes, absolutely. That great question. So are steam ovens extra beneficial on high altitude? Yes. So because of our high elevation, we do have water evaporate very easily at a lower temperature. We can counteract that. So some of the steam ovens are going to be so precise that you can control the humidity by percentage point. So the Miele is going to be the closest, or let me turn this light on. The Miele is going to be the closest to our commercial grade, which is available to have 0 to 100% humidity, and you can put any percentage point in between. So if you really want to get precise, you can do that. where some of the steam ovens are going to be low, medium, or high humidity, and then some are just going to be yes or no steam. And then to control the humidity point, we would raise or lower the convection by contrast to try that out. So yeah, steam can. Another thing too with some of the steam ovens and some of our modern premium ovens is that they're sealing the cavity so well that a lot of the moisture isn't evaporating out of the oven. So with some steam ovens, you can just turn it to humid bake, which means it's just going to not allow humidity to leave through its ventilation. It will, shut off the ventilation humidity wise, so the humidity will build up in there. A lot of the steam ovens are going to have a baking function. So another way that we get steam into our baking oven would be, in bakeries, we have a steam boiler built in, and it's got a big valve that you just blast steam into the oven. Because when you're doing baking, you want the dough to be wet when we start it. French baguettes, most of your crusty breads are getting wet, they're getting steamed or wet in the beginning of the process so that the bread can rise and stretch and create that thicker crust. If you bake bread straight in a dry oven, it can get really brittle, thin crust, and it'll also burst because the crust is setting as it's trying to rise. Whereas wet dough stretches and then turns dry and solidifies. So we have a lot of automated bread baking in these steam ovens where it does the steam and then changes it. Another question, is there any problems with mold or mildew in steam ovens? There can be if we're leaving water in there in a reservoir for a long time. There aren't many of these that are actually plumbed to drain out the cavity itself. So something to keep in mind is when we're rinsing or draining, sometimes we're talking about the boiler unit, and sometimes we're talking about the oven cavity. So the oven cavity can get a little funky. I usually wipe it out and then do a bake cycle, or some of them have a 10-minute drying cycle. So it just turns on convection to get rid of that humidity in there. Or I'll pop the door open after that so it really gets the steam out. So we're not going to leave the reservoir with water. We're not going to leave this cavity, kind of funky. Miele is the one that is plumbed and drainable. So we have a plumbed in and out, and we have a drain in the cavity itself. So we're able to get that. And even when you don't have it plumbed, it will pump off the wastewater into the a used water canister that you can empty. So those are some finer points that some manufacturers do and some don't. Someone's asking, can you repeat the brands that have the combo induction and gas top burners on a full range unit? Okay, so just to clarify, there are no 30-inch ranges with gas and induction. There are, our growing market is where we're seeing induction 30-inch slide-ins replace old electric tops. You can do that with almost any electric space, we just make sure there's amperage ample for that. So some of your induction is going to take 30 to 50 amps, which is higher than an old electric top. But the brands that are doing the larger, so your 48-inch, 42-inch ranges that have both would be Thermador, has gas and induction. LG Signature Kitchen Switch SKS line. Who else have I seen it on? Those are the two that come to mind. Actually, I'm just seeing, I think Monogram. Is Monogram doing? I'm not sure. But like I said, get a relationship with a retailer. They're there to help you. They're there to really, get clients up to speed. And kitchen designing is so many components and the appliance industry is always changing that we don't expect kitchen designers to know as much as we do. We have these brand reps coming in constantly telling us what's new, training us on what's products available. The sales force gets that training so that what you want to do as a kitchen designer, architect, home builder is get your roster of experts and shop around. Some are salespeople only, and some are going to be really tech driven and want happy clients, right? Because your clients are our clients in this industry. Looking for the best wok for induction cooking. Wok induction, Genair has a convected bowl burner, and so you can put a wok burner down there. Wok cooking, I would do high temperature, kind of maybe a little flat bottom wok on an induction burner, and that's high saute, quick heat. There are limitations to induction. That exposed flame cooking does a few things. Even the wok pan getting really hot is one thing, but when we're tossing them and you see that fire cascade, that's the exposed flame carbonizing some of the oil and getting us some really charred flavors there that you can't truly replicate in induction. So that's where I recommend people do an outdoor burner or, you know, a high powered butane gas burner. I have catering burners that I use. Some of the other things would be charring peppers and charring tortillas. You can't do that without an exposed flame. So there are limitations. So ventilation, exhaust, you know, I always want, someone's asking what kind of ventilation you do with combination gas or induction. You're still going to want ventilation with any gas. So ventilation, a lot of it's user air. We want to turn our ventilation on. You want external venting air as whenever possible. The recirculating has a lot of limitations. You're just filtering and putting that air back into your house. So you always want external air ventilation. People complain about the noise of ventilation. And I'll say a couple things. You know, we can put the fan inline or external, but it's not the fan really making a lot of noise. It's the turbulence of the air hitting the filter as it's trying to get out. We have to filter that air to get it, to clean it, to get it out. So that the fan noise is actually the air hitting that in the mesh or baffle system, right? So one brand, Vinahood, has a proprietary technology called air lung, where they're actually using a high powered centrifuge fan to move the air and collect the particulates as it passes through. So because it's not hitting a filter system, it's got lower noise. And it also can move more air per motor size, right? So we can stay under the CFM and get better capture. The other thing is use of ventilation. Turn it on low before you start cooking to train the airflow. We can only capture and move smells and air as it happens, not after the fact. So what I see is a lot of people that don't turn on their ventilation until they've already made their house and their kitchen smell, and open floor plans, you know, we're getting a lot of smells in the corners. Well, the fan can never get that. It can only capture what's happening, right? So turn it on low, which is lower and quieter. Turn it to medium when it starts getting feisty in there, but you're not gonna have to turn it full blast. The name of the ventilation that I have at home and that I prefer is Vinahood. Vent-A-Hood, and they do all kinds of custom builds. They can do inserts for any kind of ventilation hood, but that's going to be a little bit more expensive. But for me, you know, we see people spending more on appliances because it's an experiential return on life investment instantly on their lifestyle. So we're seeing people kind of spend a little bit more. So that's something to keep in mind. Oh goodness, I just go on and on. So here's a video, and we're not going to watch it just for time's sake, but it's a little 2-minute promo of the commercial range ovens that we talked about, those steam ovens. And gotta tell it to stop. Okay. So that's rationale. You can look their videos. I really want to show people, customers, when they come into the showroom, I'm teaching them about something they didn't know existed. I'm teaching them that it's tested and trusted and not a fad, and I'm showing them how they can benefit from it. So that can be a tall task in a 5-minute session of just people in the showroom. So I do like to stress the point, hey, this is technology that's been in the restaurant industry, tested, trusted, performs well, longevity there, so that it's not, oh, this is something that this brand just invented and they're going to see if it goes. It's really, you know, really it's been around for a long time. We won't get into too much detail on the convection. You know, convection just means there's a fan moving the air around to replenish the heat as the food absorbs it. So convection reheats the exterior of the food quicker, getting us a more true browning or crisping. So old conventional ovens just had a heating element on the bottom, and then passively the heat would rise. So we always had browner bottoms and pale tops on cookies and things. So convection just speeds up and replenishes the heat. So it's what I usually do as a standard. People can get really particular on like, hey, there's all these settings, what is for what's perfect. You know, dinner doesn't have to be perfect to be good. And when we're getting into these different settings, we could be splitting hairs. You know, what's the difference between convection bake and convection roast? You know, whenever we're roasting, we're getting more heat on top. Baking is more heat on bottom. True convection would be the heating element around the fan. So we're not having top or bottom directional heat. We're having true non-centralized heat. But you know, sometimes I feel like baked potatoes, and sometimes I feel like fried potatoes, and sometimes I boil my potatoes. Like there's different ways of cooking for different, you know, different preferences and different feelings. So knowing exactly what setting for cooking, it's going to have a very small impact on your meal. So it's just, you know, I try to get people to settle down a little when they get too particular. You know, wall ovens are always going to have the most technology available. Ranges, we're downsizing everything to fit. So, you know, your cooktop and double wall oven is kind of your standard for your premium setting. Speed ovens. So convenience ovens, speed ovens, this is a category, another specialty oven. So it could be used as a straight convection oven, but then also can be used as just a microwave. Where the magic really happens is when we're mixing in different heating elements. So the Avantium is a Monogram GE product, which has a broiler, baking element, microwave, and convection. So it's got all those heat sources. And what's happening is you're actually able to have microbursts of microwave. So we're not doing, the microwave turns on and off as do the other heating elements. So we're getting the benefit of all of them. So we're going to be able to speed up the cooking process without sacrificing the quality of food, getting the benefits of those different heating elements without, you know, just microwaving dinner, right? But you're getting a little speed boost there. So we're seeing convenience ovens go to a lot of younger families with kids, and they got to get dinner quickly. I'm going to be more comfortable having kids learn and use a speed oven or a convenience oven than, let's say, a range or a dry oven, because these auto shut off. A lot of them are going to interface like a microwave. Even if it's using baking elements, it's going to have a timer and shut off. And a lot of them have preset recipes in there. So you get a higher quality food. Whenever you're looking at any kind of microwave, especially whenever they're comboed, here's something you got to ask about the brand. Your standard microwave, when we set it to low settings, say 30% power, right? They're really doing 100% power 30% of the time. So on and off, on and off. So great. You're trying to soften butter and you're still getting those melted holes in the middle. That's because it's full power 30% of the time. When you get into a convenience oven, when you get in a microwave that has we call this a power inverter, we're actually able to reduce the microwave power output. So you're truly getting 30% of the power. And that's where the magic happens with these combo ovens, where we're roasting or we're baking something, but we're just going to do 20, 30, 40% microwave just to boost it along, cooking from the inside out and the outside in. So you get a nice cooked meal, you get a nice chicken breast, whatever you're cooking, a little bit quicker, right? Probe thermometers, we're seeing a lot of grill aficionados are using the Wi-Fi Bluetooth thermometers, so that they're automated, they're in your app, they're alerting you. Some of them are built into the oven where we're getting a probe in the oven and then you put it into the food, or we're seeing free floating ones that are a separate unit. All of it's great because we're going to be able to see the internal temperature as we're cooking. This is what I do in restaurants because I don't want to ever overcook or undercook something, especially big pieces of meat. You know, those are several $100s. So we're able to see the real-time internal temperature. Start using those. I always set the temperature I want to cook to, not by time, because time I'm going to be checking the oven constantly and resetting the timer. So you can get really precise cooking. I know we're running out of time. I apologize for being so wordy, but so many great questions. Like I said, you're welcome to reach out, and I will. Debbie will send a follow-up with the links to this, the slideshow. So here's a video of, and we won't go into that, but this is the core oven. It's a needle that goes right through a cork, and as you siphon off a glass of wine at a time, the argon goes in. The bottle preserving it. So I think those bottles preserve for a very long time. So you're able to pour per glass. So say you've got a bottle that you want to savor and not have to open, and then it's going to turn on you really, right? Great question. Will I be at KBIS? I'm on the wait list to do a Voices from the Industry presentation again. I was at the last 2 KBISs, but I might be there on the showroom floor. You never know who's gonna want me to go with them. Plum is a great unit where we put 2 bottles in the unit, and then it's going to auto adjust temperature control. And those are going to be drill through the cork. And again, argon's going to replace. And I really, I apologize for not having time for this, but there are some home cook archetypes, and this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just to get people to think about when a client comes in, what am I matching up? What's their cook style? What's their lifestyle? Are they going to only want to bake? Are they going to want to do saute cooking? Are they a busy family that's got to get meals on the table quickly? And that's how I qualify or guide a customer. I can ask a few questions and eliminate a lot of the appliances on a showroom floor just by asking them what they need, right? So again, you will have connection to this. The technology footprint is a little different than it used to be. You're going to want a cooktop and double range oven or double wall oven. Some of the larger ranges have all this mixed use technology, but just getting away from the concept of a client coming in and saying, hey, I need fridge, range, dishwasher. We're seeing a lot more specialty appliances available, and then seeing where they want to fit that in. And there are a lot of countertop options available too. So think about that in the whole design process. If they're limited on space, induction burner on the countertop that can be put away works really well too. Yeah, thank you all so much. Feel free to reach out. CEU at chefaf.com works. Andrew at chefaf.com works. I do CEU, I'm certified with NKBA and IDCEC. So I do chapter meetings, I do remote lessons. So you're welcome to reach out and do a class with the group. I do it with brands that want to do it in showrooms with designers. So even if you know a small design firm, if you've got 4 to 6 designers you can get together, we can usually find one of the manufacturers to help sponsor that or do it directly. I do work with clients, so home appliance selection is a service consulting I do, so remotely or here in Colorado. I do that with customers on guiding them through the selection process. So I do partner with a lot of the different showrooms to meet up and discuss appliances. So thank you so much. I appreciate all the kind words there. I hope this was helpful. And again, you can reach out chefaf.com and ask any questions that you have.
Well, Chef Andrew, thank you so much. This has been great. Everybody is definitely so happy to learn all this information. And before you go, everyone, I want to thank all of you out there in the audience for being with us today. I know Andrew had a lot of great information to share. The recording will be coming to you. And I just want to thank Headache for their generous sponsorship. And once again to you, Andrew, for this great presentation. It was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day.